It's one of those albums which is way different to anything else he's done. I mean, it's in a similar vein, but it's very different and it's very inaccessible. So like as we were saying, the first time I listened to it, I just I didn't hate it. It was just there for me. Like I didn't have an opinion on it either way. Like I was just completely indifferent to it. But then the more you listen to it, the more everything just clicks. And then suddenly, and now just every time I listen to it, I'm just enchanted. It's because as on top of it being having very grand feeling, just like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I love albums like that. Also, so saying related to very similar to your Gambino album, it has this really deep story to it, where across the entire album, where he's not only expanding the Weeknd character with character development and everything, but he's also fleshing out this entire world. Because basically the story is he travels to Kissland, and that's where he has this thing with this stripper, like this relationship with a stripper. And then there's also it was designed at a time in his life where he had just become big from Trilogy, so he was basically dealing with feelings of feeling isolation and being in this unfamiliar territory because he was touring for the first time and everything. And then he goes back home then at the end of the album and finds out his girl was cheating on him, and obviously he was cheating on her, and it's all this insane story going on with character development and everything like that. And you combine that with all this, the grand musicality of it and these crazy melodies, and it's an incredible experience, is how I describe it.
Wow.
Yeah,
What
I can
makes
tell
it?
you make it sound pretty great.
Yeah, what makes
Yeah,
it inaccessible?
um, I, I honestly couldn't put my finger on what it is. I guess it's just like myself and everyone else I know who have listened to it, and including like just reading opinions online. I couldn't tell you what it is. It's just the first time you listen to it, like you recognize there's stuff going on, but it's just you're completely indifferent to it. You're like, oh, okay, it was all right, I guess, but I preferred the other stuff. And as you return to it more, it's just on one listen, it just kind of clicks for you. I really couldn't tell you what it is. Um, I guess because maybe like structurally is all over the place. Like this, I don't think there's a single song on the album which is like verse, chorus, verse, chorus. Like he's just constantly doing all these switch ups. And also musically at the time, it was like, I mean, it's kind of like orchestral and synthy, but it's also I'd have to re-listen to it to fully describe it. Like there's so much weirdness going on, I guess. Not weird in like a Kanye level, but like it's just it's just very different, I guess. But it's aged incredibly well, and actually listen to it now, it does sound like a modern album. Um, it's just it's hard to describe. It's just very very unique.
Wow.
Would you put it well ahead of Trilogy and House of Balloons, or no?
That's the thing. Like, if we were not doing this one per artist, Trilogy would probably be like, no, 3 or 4 maybe. So it wouldn't be well above. It would be like, yeah. I mean, they're near close to me, like 1 or 2 spots gap. Most people tend to prefer Trilogy, but for me, Kissland was a lot more richer for me. He's describing as Japan, and like all the music videos are in Japan. It's like a glorified version of Japan, essentially. Not only glorified, like he portrays it as like glorified and picturesque on the surface level, but then it actually has a really shady and seedy underworld. It's a really cool portrayal. Like it really feels sci-fi in a way. Like if you watch the music video of "Belong to the World," it's like this really cool sci-fi. Like it's all inspired by films like Blade Runner and like a lot of like 80s sci-fi.
Very
I
cool.
totally get that vibe from it. Maybe because I have watched a few Weeknd music videos, I totally get that.
Yeah, it's inspired by like Blade Runner and like a lot of like just sci-fi from that era and just movies in general from that era. There's a ton of depth and it's such a cool concept, and he absolutely nails it.